Hi guys, it's Jeremiah Wong from Frontier Precision Unmanned. I just wanted to make a quick little video in regards to Pix4D and the DSMs and DTMs and whatnot that you can export out of here. You can, and there are ways to make it a little bit better. So I have this little roadway corridor right here. If we go through, I had it all classified, but then if we go through and turn off everything but the ground. If we zoom into this area right here where there are trees, you can actually see that there are still some things that the classification did not get rid of. So what's going to happen is when it generates that DTM, and then from that DTM you can generate your contours, or the contours themselves when you generate them, it's going to take these into account. So one thing that you have to go through and do, because if you go through and do that, you'll end up with something like this. So I went through and processed the data, and then I generated the DTM, and then I stuck it into, this is global mapper right now, but every spot where there was one of those points in the air, it's going to contour to those points. So the best way to do this, I guess the best way to get something workable out of Mapper would be needing to manually classify these points. So in order to do that, you can go through here, click that button, and then you just kind of click around the points. And then right click, highlights them, and then I'm going to assign this to high vegetation and go assign, and it takes it away. So then when you go through and generate that DTM, it's not going to take those points into account, and then you won't have issues like this. But another thing that we can look at too is we can see things like buildings. Like there's a building here. You can see it doesn't do a great job at the edge of the building. And this could cause issues with the contours you create too. Because let's say, let me go back to the global mapper, and we'll go, let's say around the building right here. Again, it didn't remove all the points, so it tends to the top of those points. So again, you would kind of have to go through and manually clean up the point cloud a bit if you want nice contours out of Pix4D mapper. So in general, I don't recommend using the contours directly or using a surface directly generated out of Pix4D. I would rather use or go the next step and use something like Pix4D survey, which will then allow you to pretty much plop down a grid of points and generate a surface on the data that you know is good, or that you know is good, and pretty much pick out what you want instead of relying on getting what you get and kind of working around that. So in order to generate that DTM though, you go to processing options. In the point cloud, you want to check this box right here so it classifies the point cloud. I generated texture mesh, but again, I don't really care for the texture mesh right now. But if I go into here, the DSM, orthomosaic, and index, so step 3, I'll go to additional outputs. And out here, this is where if I want a shapefile or for it to create a shapefile, this is where you would create it. 1 foot intervals by resolution, minimum line size. And then up here, you can output a gridded DSM. But right here, this is where you check to get that raster DTM. And then I would go through and make sure the raster DSM is checked too, and you hit OK. And when you hit OK, if you did go through and remove some of these points and do some manual classification, and you run through the DSM DTM process again, it will recreate that DSM or DTM without these points taken into account. It gets you a little bit closer to more of the true surface, but again, I do not recommend doing surfaces directly out of Pix4D. I recommend going through a third-party piece of software to pretty much pull exactly what you need instead of doing it the other way around. So in something like Pix4D survey, I would just, if I wanted this area, I would highlight the area and drop my grid of points down, generate that surface, then export that surface out. It's a little bit more work. It's a little bit more manual work. But if you want good, clean data without any issues with things floating in the air that you might have missed, or things in classification like edges around buildings and things like these, you're going to end up always having to do some kind of manual classification or manual cleanup with the point cloud. So I hope this helps. Actually, if I open this, I can go through and show you though. Here. So if we actually go through, you can see this right here. So this is what it exports out. You have your step 1, step 2, and then your extras, because I didn't generate an orthomosaic, the last one. But if you go in your extras, you can see DTM, and you can see my contours that were generated, and then you can see the DSM, and then the mosaic too. So when you go through and check those boxes and you process it, this is where that data gets dumped into, and this is where I just dragged and dropped that into Global Mapper, and then I did the same thing with the contours too. You can put that into Civil 3D or Global Mapper or what have you. So hopefully this helps you out. I mean, you can get surfaces and DSMs out of Pix4D, but I tend to avoid doing that, and I much rather would just pull data directly on exactly what I need, instead of relying on an auto-generated surface. So hopefully that helps you out, and I'll talk to you guys later.